Our group did the presentation and research on Jack Kevorkian, otherwise known as Dr. Death by a lot of people. He helped with assisted suicide, so we're just going to kind of talk about that. So my name is Christian Meyer.
I'm Nathan Gish.
Jacob Wilson. Golden Owens.
Michael Call. Alright, so we'll first start just kind of talking about Kevorkian's kind of background and like how he kind of came upon this crusade for this. So he started his medical career working as an army medic during the Korean War in the early 1950s. So he was just exposed to a lot of death and suffering there, and so that kind of led into his professional career starting in the mid-50s. So like I said, he was always very intrigued by death and kind of an unconventional, if you think of a doctor. He spent a lot of time researching and kind of campaigning for certain things that might seem obscure to a lot of people, but he really did a lot of research, did a lot of he wrote a lot of theses on stuff. And so the first one we'll talk about is he campaigned for performing medical tests on death row inmates. So basically he thought that people condemned to death row could provide one last meaningful thing to society by like kind of being a part in a medical test. So it would end in their death. That's a his, but he thought they could then like be meaningful to society in their last days. That was pretty not well accepted in the medical world. It didn't really gain a lot of traction, and so it's not very well known of like a protest. But then he transitioned into the physician-assisted suicide once he started researching that. And that was really his first campaign that really gained a lot of traction and really became really well known in the public, and it continued on. I mean, he started his research in that in like the mid-80s, and today it's still a controversial topic between like which states allow it and don't. So that's kind of the background.
Kevorkian was a strong advocate for assisted suicide, and to help with that, he invented machines called the Thanatron and Mercitron. And the Thanatron was designed to inject a lethal dose of potassium chloride into the patient's body, and the Mercitron, you'd put on a gas mask and it would emit carbon monoxide, which would kill the patient. And so he wanted to set up clinics where these machines could be used. Those machines, that he didn't actually have to touch them at all. Like, it was completely up to the patient to use. And so he wanted to set up clinics where they could be used and people could come in if they wanted to basically commit suicide. But that idea was turned down by the government, and he wasn't too happy about this. So he started the campaign to be able to use assisted suicide. And so over about 8 years, he assisted about 130 people in committing suicide, and he was sent to court a total of 5 times. And he used these opportunities in court to advocate for what he believed. And on that 5th trial, he was sentenced to 10 to 25 years in prison, and he actually got out in 8, as long as he didn't assist anyone else or advocate for it at all.
Okay, so the lady in the picture is Janet Atkins. It was Dr. Kevorkian's first assisted suicide patient. She was a 54-year-old Oregon school teacher, and at the age of 54, she was told that she had Alzheimer's, and she did not want her family or friends to see the disease overtake her mind and see her degrade. So she reached out to Kevorkian when she was diagnosed, and because she knew he was very involved in and advocated for physician-assisted suicide. And Kevorkian accepted her and took her on, and he took her to a public park with his first machine, the Thanatron, and she pressed the button and killed herself in the van, which was later nicknamed the Death Van. And once this became public, Kevorkian was charged by the state of Michigan, and the case was dismissed, but that same year, the state of Michigan took away his medical license, therefore he could not have prescription medication to help people kill themselves. That was just the first patient. He, like Jacob said, he helped over 130 people take their own lives, and so he came up with the Mercitron that administered carbon monoxide to his patients. And eventually he went on 60 Minutes and aired a video of one of his patients using this device, and he dared authorities to arrest him and take him to court, and they did, and he was eventually charged.
So kind of the ethical dilemmas of this situation. From Kevorkian's side, he really believed in human autonomy, being able to do with your body as you choose. So he felt that if you were in a state that you didn't believe you had a quality of life or anything like that, you should have the right as a human to either continue living or not. Through all of his procedures, he went through a pretty scrutinous medical exam. They did a psychological analysis and then exams of the person to see exactly what they did. Those were disputed in a lot of cases because there were some where people said that they were terminally ill, and he accepted that, but autopsies later said that they weren't. So what's interesting is that this debate is still going on today. Actually, only 6 of the 50 states have some form of physician-assisted suicide, and a lot of it is very, very bumpy on what you can and can't do. But a Gallup poll actually shows that 69% of American doctors believe in it and actually would advocate for it, in addition to over half of Americans saying that it is morally okay to take your own life if you believe that you don't have the quality that you're looking for. So this debate is still going on, and you kind of have to think about what is really in play here. It's the autonomy of a human being and whether or not they have the right to choose what they're doing with their life or not. And if doctors, who are the people who are supposed to be the ones who do everything in their power to cure you, should be the ones who should help you in ending your life.
Yeah, so how does this relate to more general actually more like general engineering in general? Engineers every day face ethical dilemmas, and so our conclusion on this case was that it was pretty unethical. Most people don't want to drug a patient to commit suicide, so it's pretty unethical. That's what we came up with. As I said earlier, there's 6 states that have legalized medical-assisted suicide. I believe those states are Oregon, Washington, California, Colorado, Vermont, and the District of Columbia. But typically, that's a very rare case. It's where it's legal. I mean, they have to go through a lot of numerous regulations. And so, in the future, as professional engineers and advocates as well, we need to follow up the right ethics and the ethical dilemmas that we face every day, and because we'll be facing those today and even way past in our future. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for your time and attention.